Welcome to Women Kicking Glass, the only radio show on OC Talk Radio dedicated to empowering women to be the best leaders they can be in any endeavor they choose. Patty Grimm is our host and interviews top women in a variety of fields to help women grow, learn, and lean in together. Patty has over 25 years of experience in primarily male-dominated fields in senior-level management positions. Patty is the owner of Advantage Training Limited, an organizational leadership team training company. She recently released her new book for women called Quiet Women Never Changed History. Be strong, stand out, and stand up. With the subtitle, Let's Go Kick Some Glass.
All right, let's do it. Let's go kick some glass with Patty.
Great. Thanks, Paul. We're here today with an amazing guest, and I do want to remind people that my book is on Amazon. If you wanted to go buy it, you can simply type in Quiet Women Never Change History. It will pop up. You can buy my book, and if you buy it, please write a review. It really helps with Amazon in terms of being bestsellers. So a couple of things about the radio show, and then I'll introduce our wonderful guest today, Ann Bennett. So as the announcer said, the show's really by women, for women, about issues they care about. So each week I'll be talking about different topics. I'll have different women in the room who've climbed the corporate ladder and maybe can pass on some advice to our audience about what they've learned in their life and how they would give advice to themselves as they go forward. We'll talk about social issues such as cyberbullying. We have a guest coming on talking about human trafficking, which is much larger in Orange County and the U.S. than you can even imagine. It's actually larger in the U.S. than it is internationally, and it's a crime. It's slavery at its worst. We'll also talk about things like women who have founded nonprofit agencies or financial advice. Our great guest today is Ann Bennett, and Ann is just a dynamo. She's got this gorgeous, gorgeous red hair, beautiful black leather jacket. She's just absolutely a dynamo, and she's founder of Ann Bennett Marketing, and she's an international speaker, best-selling author, coach, and brand profit builder. So think about your brand and how you build that to be something that makes profit for you. She uses her marketing and branding genius to help empower women and a few men to stand out in their personal brands and really boost their profit. The brand means a lot, and it brings lots of value to your organization. Ann works with purpose-driven entrepreneurs who do transformational work so they can liberate and ignite their unique genius, find their authentic voice, and build a profitable brand platform. She has over 25 years' experience in graphic and visual design and has brought her talents to major magazines from Popular Mechanics, interesting, to Vogue, where the devil really does wear Prada. Love to hear about that. Ann's personal slogan and the cornerstone of her business is, it's smart to fit in, but it's brilliant to stand out. So thanks for being here today. I really looking forward to our talk today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. So, Ann, just tell us a little bit about you, your background, your experience, how you became a brand ambassador, a brand genius.
Well, I think, it's kind of interesting. My original background is I'm a magazine art director as well as a painter. Was an artist. I went to New York to pursue my career in painting and ended up staying and loving it and working for almost every magazine in existence, I think, at that time.
Is that how Popular Mechanics came about?
Yeah, the first job I ever got was at Boating Magazine, and then I went to work as the first woman in the art department of Popular Mechanics, and that was a blast. Driving cars, shooting guns, driving boats. It just was me and the boys.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. And so it says the devil really does wear Prada. I mean, so did you actually work at Vogue?
Yes, I did. I worked at Vogue for about 5 or 6 years as an art director designer. And actually the woman who wrote The Devil Wears Prada was working there at the same time I was.
Oh, wow.
And, Anna Wintour is an extraordinarily fascinating woman and the most powerful woman in fashion. And I used to laugh all the time. Stories. Yeah. People are like, tell us the stories. Tell us a story.
Tell us a story. Did you really do that?
Yeah. And she really liked that. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, they made her really nice in the movie. But, the thing about Anna, which is great, is that she could it would be 2 seconds before she was coming to the office, and she'd call in, and everybody would drop everything and run to the presentation room and just be standing and waiting quietly. She really knew how to run something very, very efficiently.
Yeah. I actually worked at Mattel at one time as a consultant for a number of years, and Jill Berard, who founded Barbie and was the CEO of Barbie for many years, she's this incredible woman. She actually wears a Bumblebee pin always, and she wears that because whenever an engineer would tell her something couldn't be done, she would point at the Bumblebee and say, bumblebees, from an engineering perspective, shouldn't fly. Their wings are too small. And so when we'd come out of these design meetings with some of these Barbie designers, because it was part of the Barbie team at the time, and they're in tears because Jill has torn apart their precious design.
Exactly.
The thing is, 99.9% of the time, she was absolutely right. It was little things like the dress is the wrong blue. It should be a lighter. Amazing, talented, insightful kind of woman.
Yeah,
so,
super detailed.
Super detailed. But I love the Bumblebee story. It can't be done. Look at my wings, right? So how did you become a personal brand mentor?
It's kind of interesting. Becoming a mentor is an interesting thing. I think it's because I made a lot of mistakes.
That's a good way to learn.
I think I've done it all the wrong way. And, but when I left New York and came to California, I was working as a marketing director for a wedding magazine. And, of course, I got an assistant, and she was young and beautiful and fabulous, and the next day I was fired. And with that, I was like, okay, I'm going to take all my talents and everything that I do and what I've done over the last 25 years and focus it on women entrepreneurs. And at first I was going to be like a life coach. I was like, let me help, inspire and motivate. And I was like, you know what? I am not really that good of a listener, and I'm really about results. So I thought, what does everybody need?
Yeah.
Everybody needs marketing. Everybody needs branding. Everybody needs to stand out in this crowded marketplace. So that's where I took all of my creative talent and kind of focused it there.
That's great. That's great. And one of the pillars of my book is stand out.
Exactly.
And the three things under that I say is be visible, be valuable, and be vocal. So you've got to be visible. You've got to be different.
Absolutely.
You need to think about things because there's so much going on in the market. There's so much social media. How will you stand out? And people have said my Women Kicking Glass is really kind of something that's sort of resonating with them in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for me, it's smart to fit in, but it's brilliant to stand out.
I love that.
And then be real, raw, and relevant.
Yeah.
Which is the same, very much the same of what you're talking about.
Yeah, right.
It's like, okay, you want to be a real person so people can relate to you.
Yeah.
You want, and from my point of view, you want to be up on the edge or you're taking up too much room.
Yeah.
So you want to be a little raw, a little edgy, a little bit different than everyone else. And then also speak about, what people care about.
Yeah.
What people's hearts are wanting to do, and then the purpose of what it is you do.
Yeah. So why is it so important for you for people to think about their brand or to think about how do they stand out and be smart to fit in but great to stand out? I mean, why is that important to you?
Yeah, well, I think, we've all been raised, particularly as women, fit in, be beautiful, look a particular way, have the right look, and did it right.
Yep.
And all this stuff. And that whole thing about there's a great woman behind every man is very old-fashioned at this point. It's kind of flipped around, if you've noticed.
There's a great woman behind every woman.
Yeah, or there's a great man behind every woman at this point in a lot of women entrepreneurs, certainly. But I think in terms of standing out, it's really important to understand, yes, of course, there's certain kind of protocol that you might want to follow, but at the same time, when you get in a room with people and you're like, hi, I'm a realtor, hi, I'm a realtor, hi, I'm a realtor, or hi, I'm, a dentist, the only thing that really separates you from everyone else is what I call your 1%, which is the fascinating factor about your personality, your point of view, how you actually interpret the world is why people want to come and be with you over someone else.
Yeah.
They're really not that interested in buying your product or service. I hate to say that to people because they get like, what?
But I love my product, but they're really buying you. They like you. You buy from people you like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it becomes, or that I say to people, your people are going to believe what you believe. So you want to be, it's not like converting the masses. It's like finding and magnetizing your people to you.
Right. Right, right. And you really want to make sure that you're doing things in an authentic way. And that's what I'm really hearing from you. It needs to be authentic. It needs to be genuine. If you're trying to be somebody else, it may be even difficult, stressful, and painful for you, but people will realize that it's phony. And people will see right through it. I've seen so many people that have tried to be somebody else, and you look at them and go, oh, get a grip.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's kind of like dating, right? You put all these pictures up that are like you 10 years ago or when you were like 25 pounds lighter or whatever, and you're like, huh? So when people see this inconsistency or incongruency is when they don't trust you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really has to be you.
You brought up something really, really important, and I'm actually going to write a blog and probably do a Facebook Live post about this. It's about raising brave girls who are risk takers. As much as we've tried to raise enlightened girls in our lives and they're now playing soccer or they're go out doing things that boys do, we still have a tendency to want them to be perfect. Right. I look at the difference between a little girl's soccer team where they all have all their outfits match, they all have the right ponytail and the right bow or hair ribbon in their hair, and you look at the boys and they're out there and their socks don't match, their shoes don't match, they're pulling grass and eating it or throwing it at each other. We still have a ways to go with raising these brave girls who aren't perfectionists and don't have to be perfect or fit into somebody else's image. Because what happens when you grow up, sometimes that just amplifies and actually prevents some women from going after some jobs or doing some things because they're too risky. They may not be perfect, and they might fail. Yeah,
I think that's a great point. It's like the whole idea is to fail over and over and over and over, but keep learn failing forward.
Yeah.
Right? Keep moving forward, and just going to the next thing, going to the next thing, going to the next thing. And I think as women, a lot of times we have a tendency to think, well, I'm going to do it once, and it's going to be amazing. Or if it fails, then I shouldn't be doing that. And it's really sad because a lot of people give up on their dreams and they give up on what they want to do because they fail a couple times. And, it was fascinating to listen. I don't know if you caught this, but it was fascinating to hear Madonna talk about her career when she was getting the award for the Billboard's...
it was amazing.
Yeah, it was extraordinary, right? And I'd never seen her that vulnerable.
Yes.
And there wasn't a dry eye in the house.
No.
And it was almost like everyone had their mouth open.
Yeah.
But it's because she just told the truth.
Yeah.
What it was actually like.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, it was so easy to do this, and oh, yeah, it's just add water and stir, and,
Yeah.
It's not like that.
Well, yeah, in fact... you can probably find the video on YouTube, but it's also on my Women Kicking Glass Facebook page. I posted it and said, this was incredible. I mean, this was vulnerable. This was incredible. I cried when I listened to it. I wasn't in the audience, but I cried when I listened to it because she talked about what she's gone through in her life. And you said fail forward. I think that's really important. That when we do have something that doesn't go well, we should ask ourselves, what did we learn from it? So we don't do it again. But don't give up. I mean, Walt Disney said, cherish your dreams because they were the visions of your childhood. So if your dream was to be a dancer, if your dream was to be an artist or in a magazine or anything, live in New York. I love New York. Any of those kinds of things. Don't let go of those dreams. Just keep pursuing them. But when you fail forward. I love that, Anne. That's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. I think, we stop dreaming at some point.
We give up on our dreams because we're taking care of the dreams of others as women.
Yeah, and supporting other people. I mean, I personally was, I never followed the rules. I never have, and I never will.
Thank goodness. Don't start.
So it wasn't like I had to, I was raised by half my family's from Texas, so my father was a good old boy from the South, and much to his chagrin, I was always in the vice principal's office.
Me too.
So you find, a lot of entrepreneurs, especially a lot of women entrepreneurs, have found themselves on the other side of the fence quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. So why does everybody need a personal brand? It's something I actually talk about in my book as well, but why do we all need a personal brand?
The thing in this modern day and age is that there's a billion websites and more as we speak, people coming online, and everyone is in a sea of marketing, right? Or you look in your email box and there's like 250 emails.
Or newsletters or...
Yeah, what are you going to open? Or what really gets your curiosity or inspires you? I like to use this saying, surprise and delight.
I like that.
Because then when you open something, there's a surprise. And there's a delight in it's funny, or it's interesting, or it's different. And it's extremely important because there's so much of us doing so many of the same things. And like we were saying previously, it's really that 1% of what your personality is like and how you interpret the world and what you say about things that makes you different than everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I talk about is You Incorporated. Think about your brand as You Incorporated. Now, the spin I take on it's a little bit different, and as I talk about You Incorporated in terms of figuring out what your strengths are. And figuring out what your strengths are so that you can play to those strengths. Because if you think about it logically, if you're doing something you enjoy doing and you're good doing it, you're going to be more productive. You're going to have less stress. And so my You Incorporated is all about writing out your own personal vision about what you want to be in 5 years. Or if your favorite magazine was going to write an article about you, what do you want that magazine to say about you? And use that as your strength foundation for how you can move forward. But I think you take it to another level. What is a rock star rebel brand? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
A rock star rebel band.
Brand.
Or band.
Well, being a rock star is not like wearing a meat dress and like Gaga and driving your motorcycle up on stage. Being a rock star is actually being unapologetically you. It's really being who you are. So I have a lot of people that come to me and they're like, well, I'm kind of an introvert. I'm not really a rock star kind of person. It's like each one of us, my belief is each one of us comes to this planet and we have unique and distinct gifts that we bring naturally that we've had since childhood. So a lot of times with my clients, we look at different stories that you have in your life from different decades. And a lot of times people are like, well, I don't understand how that relates to my brand. And if you look at it, you actually have a thread of what I call DNA that runs through all of your stories that pretty much influences and tells you why you do what it is you're doing now, or what would be a great thing for you to be doing with all of your talents. So part of it is how you fascinate other people. Like, I don't consider myself a rock star. At all, right?
I would disagree.
Like, you're such a rock star. You're such a rock star. And I'm like, okay, if you say so.
Just say thank you.
Right. Because I do have an introverted aspect on the bell curve. I tell people, well, I actually get stage fright. And they're like, oh my God, you're such a great speaker. How is it that you have stage fright? And I'm like, well, I just let go of it and focus on other people.
And focus on being, as you said, being the genuine, authentic you. Because if you're genuine, authentic you, you're not faking it. You're not trying to act a role. You're not trying to be somebody else. And I think that's an important lesson for the women in the audience is, stand up for yourself and what you believe in and be your genuine self. Find those things that make you unique. I know a lot of people, a lot of leaders I've worked with that are very introverted. And one of the interesting things is I was working with a group where they were all Texas folks. I got a little bit of a Southern Texan accent out of you. People tell me I still have my Southern accent. I'm like, I don't have an accent. What are you talking about? But they were all very strong oilmen, and they were all out of Texas. And this one individual person in the room was the one woman who was very introverted. And yet when she spoke 5 words of wisdom to their 50 words of crap.
I have to say, it's the classic less is more, and you want to choose your words and leave space for people to absorb what you're saying. A lot of times we're like busy trying to talk really, really fast and get it all out, which is great in a time frame, right?
Right.
But ultimately, people want to hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So what is rock your rebel style? Sorry, I'm trying to read that.
Rock your rebel style. You don't have all these RRRs, right?
I know.
I was like, what is that? Rock your rebel style is really, it's a new program that I developed, but it really comes from that aspect of what is your personal style? What is your belief system? What are your stories? How does that relate to your brand? How do you write what I call a head-whipping hook? Head-whipping hook.
A head-whipping hook, where when you introduce somebody goes, Wow.
It's like, it's a head turner.
It's a head turner. We're both sitting here having our head going back and forth.
Because, we have the attention span of a small goldfish. Actually, I think they might be beating us right now. I think our attention span is about 7 seconds. So it's not like you want to always be particularly bombastic, but you do want to interrupt people's conversation and what they're thinking about. So a head-whipping hook is something like it's smart to fit in, it's brilliant to stand out. You have some yourself, which are really great.
Yeah.
And so people are like, they're hearing something different. It's interrupting normally what they're thinking about.
Yeah. A lot of people do networking, and I think a lot of people do the typical networking. They go to an event, they exchange business cards. Hi, Ann, how are you? What do you do? To me, something like that head-whipping statement or something could be like your 7 second, not your 30-second, not your 5-minute elevator pitch, but something that's like your quick thing that when you introduce yourself to people that does get them to think for a minute or stop for a second.
Yeah, it totally interrupts what people are thinking.
Yeah,
basically, because they're thinking that they're going to hear, hi, how are you? What do you do?
Yeah, here's what I do, blah, blah, blah.
We're all kind of hypnotized when we go to sleep.
And how much of that do we really hear? We sort of take the business card, put it in our purse or in our jacket or whatever, and we put it away for a while. But is there something that person did or said that whipped your head or sparked your interest enough where they say, tell me more?
Mm-hmm. And I think, one of my favorite quotes, I'll just paraphrase, is, from Maya Angelou, and she said, no one remembers what you say.
Yep.
They always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And it's extremely important to understand. It's really an exchange of energy. Like a lot of times, I'll just walk in a room and people will come over to me.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to them for a minute and they're like, I don't care what you do, whatever, sign me up.
Yeah. Well, here's a real testimonial. When I met Ann in a women's group, she is one of the people that really stood out, that really sparked my interest. That I wanted to say, tell me more. And that's really important when you're thinking about it from a networking standpoint, because typically we go to these events and 5 days later, do you remember even who you met? Did you engage that person that you were interested in coffee? Did you get them on a phone call or a Skype call?
Do they want to talk to you? Do you want to talk to that person further? I think what happened for me when I first started was, I came out of, working in magazines and this and that, and I went networking. I'm like, okay, I'm going to wear a business suit. Okay, Armani, but, I'm going to wear a business suit, right, and I'm going to look and dress like everyone there. And ironically, people didn't remember me. No. And was your hair like that back then? No, it was longer, and, it was more, like, my hair is very shaggy, and I have it spiky, and it, has a weird little piece of blonde that hangs out. But I think, as soon as I discovered, you know what, it's really about being yourself. Yeah. It's so refreshing for other people, and then it allows them to be themselves. Yeah, yeah. And even if you don't end up doing business with the individual, you may remember them, or there's a personal connection or something you share. Being of service to others, like how can I help you? Absolutely. Is a critical piece of that. Good. We're probably going to take a commercial in just a minute because I want to spend more time with Ann. I really want to talk about how does this personal brand make a bit difference to your business if you own your own business or if you're in sales or really any job you're in sales. So we'll take a quick commercial. We'll come back and we'll talk about how all this brand stuff impacts you personally but also your business, whether you own your own business or you're part of a corporation or a nonprofit. So thanks. We'll be back in just a minute.
Imagine what it would feel like to lose everything. Your job, your home, your family, your dignity. This has happened to thousands of the men, women, veterans, and young adults we serve at Working Wardrobes. What do we do to help? We provide career development services, life skills workshops, job skills training. We provide the perfect interview outfit, and we get clients placed in jobs. Call Working Wardrobes, 714-210-2460. Donate, volunteer, invest, hire.
When it comes to pioneers in their respective industries, we all know the Apples, Starbucks, and Trader Joe's of the world. In the realm of recruiting, Decision Toolbox is the industry's best-kept secret. with 90% of their business from referrals and repeat customers. For over 20 years, Decision Toolbox's U.S.-based team of recruiters, sourcers, professional writers, quality personnel, and tech support has perfected a Six Sigma approach to talent management. No matter the size of the project, Decision Toolbox delivers incredible results. A cost per hire less than half of what contingency firms charge, with the winning candidate presented in an average of 14 days, all with a 12-month candidate warranty. With results like that, Decision Toolbox won't be a secret for long. Visit us at www.dtoolbox.com for more information.
All right, back to Patty and her guest.
Thanks, and this is Patty Grimm with Women Kicking Glass. My guest today is Ann Bennett, and we're talking about your personal brand. I want to talk to Ann a little bit and get some information about how does having your own brilliant brand and your head-turning moment help you in your business or in selling or just in general in your life?
Well, I think, the thing about a brand is it's not a logo, it's not a tagline, it's not a great pair of shoes, right? It's actually what people say about you when you leave the room. So it's an impression, a general impression. And a brand, actually, when you walk into a room, like you were saying, you met me, right? The brand is already selling before you even open your mouth. So when you're really authentically yourself, it's easy for you to just stand and share about what you care about, what your business is about. It's about enrolling other people, not really selling, but enrolling them in their own dreams. Mm-hmm. And when you walk into a room, people, in 3 seconds, especially as women, right?
Right.
We're like up and down. They got shoes, I got nails, I got lashes, whatever it is, right? We're figuring it out. It's boo, 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 boo. It's something that I believe we're trained that way. Mm-hmm. Men, not so much. I mean, I don't know if you ladies, if you notice, it's like you buy a pair of shoes or something, you do something different, and they're like, did you cut your hair? So women will know exactly what you did.
Yeah.
And I think as a brand, you want whatever it is, mine is like irreverent and kind of being edgy. You're not going to see me walking in usually in a dress and heels. It's just not going to be happening.
Right. Right. It just doesn't fit your brand.
Right. For other women, perfect.
Right. So I'm interested in your perspective on this, and this is obviously this is really a conversation between the two of us. We have a few people listening to us. Do women have more challenges than men when it comes to the brand or how they present themselves? Just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it doesn't matter how far we've come at this point. If you're a woman and you're doing a TED Talk and you come out in jeans and flip-flops and a T-shirt, they're not going to really give you the honor and respect that you deserve. Where, it's okay if Steve Jobs does that.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
Yeah.
I've even been told by a master networker that you shouldn't wear black. So, of course, today I'm in all black. But, and I understand it. There's certain things, the psychology of it, you want to understand human psychology. You don't want to go against it completely, but you want to do enough to stand out, but not enough to go like they're just totally quirky. But if you look at some people that have been extremely successful, they have pink hair.
Yeah. Sandy
Krakowski has pink hair, whatever. But, people love that.
Yeah.
So it's we were talking a moment ago about Hillary, right?
Right.
And, you were saying, now that she's not in the public arena of needing to build trust and look a certain way and be very, powerful, she was wearing casual clothes, cut her hair, did some other things.
Yeah.
So, it is a fine line.
Yeah.
And for women, certainly, there's still certain things you need to do.
Yeah, certain things you do. And because my book and my theme of Women Kicking Glass, I tend to use a lot of red, which tends to be a color that stands out. So a lot of times I go to networking events and I've got on a red sweater, red jacket, and red high heels.
Absolutely.
Because when people say, well, tell me about your book, and I pull out my book, and my book cover is this giant red patent leather high heel breaking a piece of glass, saying, let's go kick some glass. And so I'm sort of trying to do that, and Ann and I will be working on a few things about my brand going forward.
You know, it also goes back to the ruby red slippers. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
And that whole thing with red. And a lot of times you walk in and there's a sea of black dresses. And so you're the red.
Yeah, even just a little bit something different, a necklace, something a little bit different, so you do stand out. And like you said, I love it's okay to fit in, but it's better to... But it's
smart to fit in, but it's brilliant to stand
brilliant,
out.
That's the word. You use the word brilliant a lot. I love that. I love that. So what do you consider your sweet spot to be around marketing and branding for the clients that you work with?
Well, you know, I think I have a general... You know, I was talking to a client the other day, and she was like, you know, you're the kind of person that somehow you look at things that I don't even think are valuable, or I'll have a fault, and you go, wow, that's really great. Let's see how that works into your business. I have a really uncanny way of meeting people and understanding what's way below the surface. Mm-hmm. And I love to help my clients tell stories about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a story about you.
Okay.
That's a whole new question. So,
we haven't even talked about that.
No, we haven't talked about that one yet, but that kind of was interesting.
I tell.
What story can I tell?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I have a lot of stories. And when I work with my clients, I say, you want to tell a story that you're okay telling over and over, because as women, a lot of us, and even men, we've had traumatic experiences, and if you don't want to tell that story, it's perfectly fine. Right. But you want to tell a story that you can tell over and over, and one of the stories I tell a lot is I talk about, you know, I was working in New York, it was a sunny day, it was gorgeous, it was what we call the California days. I'm like working out, I'm ready to walk up Fifth Avenue, get on the subway, and go to Vogue. And I come out with a latte, and I turn and look up to see the first plane hit the World Trade Center.
Oh, wow.
And in that moment, everything that I really cared about, the glitz and the glamour of the fashion world, and here I am in the best city, and I've got the best job, and I'm kind of like the it girl.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of that, it just melted away. And I didn't care. I didn't care. It really came down to, you know, what am I doing here? What is my life about? You know, do I really matter in a sense of like, not me personally, but we?
Right.
What am I contributing?
Right.
And that's what really got me into leaving the fashion industry and moving into the branding thing. And, you know, it's a story that I tell a lot when I'm speaking, but, you know, there's so many other stories. Yeah. Like I tell the story about my father teaching me to ride a bike. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, you know, I had an older brother, and I was always vying for my dad's attention. And one day he's like, I'm going to teach you to ride a bike. So I run out to the garage, and I'm all excited, and I'm kind of small for my age. And there's my father and this big red bike. The big wheels, the Schwinn. It was my brother's bike. Right. With a bar across the top. Right. And the whole 9 yards. And in that moment, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like 6. I don't care how big the problem is or the challenge. I will make this work, or I'm going to die trying. And I became very tenacious, and I have that as part of my personality. And people like sometimes call it willful. And I like to reframe. I do a lot of reframing with my clients. Right. You know, it's really, yes, I'm very tenacious. Mm-hmm. I'm ambitious. When I see something, I want it, and I go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and not apologizing about it. I have a similar story about my dad. My dad started teaching me tennis when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I remember being 7 years old, and at that time I'd already been playing tennis for a while, and I was always afraid of standing at the net. So in tennis, you either stand in the back and hit baseline balls, or you stand close to the net where you can slam the ball across very quickly. And I was afraid of standing at the net. So here was my dad's way of teaching me the courage to stand at the net. He tied a rope to the net in the center of the court. He tied a rope to my waist that was long enough where I had to stay at net. He stood there with a bucket of balls and hit balls at me 50 balls at me. I'm crying. There's tears coming down my eyes, but I wasn't going to leave that place. And I got my tenacity and my spirit from my dad of never giving up. I also got some of that from my mother as well, who was the one daughter of 9 kids, right? Back in coal mine, West Virginia, back in the old days in West Virginia, Ohio. But really, I remember that time of my dad doing that. Now today, he probably would be reported for child abuse. But for my dad and I, that was an act of love. My greatest memories of my father were times we played tennis together, we played tournaments, and I would stand at net and I would think about my dad. And I think I got my business savvy and my love for sports and my love for cars and things that girls traditionally at that age wouldn't look at. Those came from my dad.
Yeah, it's
and
awesome.
It helped me when I was in banking. It helped me in my career at Microsoft. I could stand in there with the best of them, and people say I'm like a pit bull. I don't give up.
Yeah, it's great.
You see something you want, you just go for it.
And it's awesome. Often I say, my father used to say no a lot. No, girls don't do that, because he was from the South. He's from Texas, right? Girls don't do that. Girls don't do that. And I was like, no.
Watch me.
When people tell me no, right? And I talk a lot to women entrepreneurs, and they say the same thing, right? They're like, oh, yeah. No means go.
Yeah. Or to me, no. When somebody tells me no, it's like, watch me. Mm-hmm. Right, just watch
I'll show you, right? Or like I was driving down the 405, and I was thinking, about my dad. He's passed away now, about 15 years. And my father always wanted me to be a teacher. And I was like, Dad, I'm not going to teach. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to be famous. I had all these big aspirations. And I'm driving down the 405, and all of a sudden I start crying. I mean, the tears are just flowing. Not because of the traffic, but because all of a sudden I realized I teach. That's what I do.
That's what you do.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's who I am, actually. So this whole time I thought my father didn't get me or understand me, and it was quite the opposite.
And you're teaching in your own way. You're not the traditional people would think of being a teacher, but you are teaching people, you're developing people, you're coaching them. I thought, I tried the life coach path as well. It's just I'm not a good listener like you, and I have to tell people when they do ask me to coach them, and I do that from a business perspective, I said, I hope you're ready for me to tell you some things that you may not want to hear. I'm working with one young woman where she's got a chip on her shoulder so big I'm surprised she can stand up. So I'm like, don't get your chip on your shoulder. Here's what I see happening. Here's some things you could do, but it's going to be very direct. And so I just teach in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I think the thing is that's where I decided mentor was a good idea.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of coach. Because coaches, they really listen, and then they let the other person discover. I'm like, let me just tell you. I just can't wait for you to discover. I've gotten a lot better learning to listen, because I believe the best speakers are the best listeners, and the best salespeople are people who actually listen to someone else.
Yeah. In fact, I tell people when I was teaching some sales courses, I would say if the only voice you hear in the sales call is your own, you're talking to yourself. So you do need to ask questions and listen and try and find the right opportunities to be able to speak in. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, you're just a amazing, fascinating, talented woman.
Thank you.
And it's such fun to work with you on a variety of things. But what are some of the lessons you think you've learned in life that you would want to share with the audience? Or, as a woman in New York and running your own branding business, if you were going to give your kind of coaching / mentoring advice, maybe what 3 or 4 things would you say to our audience?
I think the biggest thing has been, and I was just speaking to one of my friends and confidants about this, as women, it's extremely challenging, I'll put it that way, not to compare yourself to other people. Or like, wow, they're so successful. How did they get there? 3 years in business and they're making $1 million. Like, how did that happen? How did they do that? And we used to do this all the time. When I was thinking about Madonna, or I was a painter and I was in the, showing in Soho and looking at, different people who became very, very successful. It's like when you compare yourself to someone else, it's just despair. Compare and despair is basically what happens, because you're never good enough. Someone else is always better than you. Or it should have gone. That expectation of, I'm going to speak, and then I'm going to have 100 new clients, and you get there and 2 people are there, and hopefully you close 50% of the room. You're like, woo, I got a client. But I think, when you can allow yourself to, I heard someone say once, when you're a guppy, be the best guppy there is. Master guppyhood. You want to swim with the big fish, but really,
you're a guppy.
Yeah, and mastering a guppyhood, it's almost like the whole thing of the Zen idea of beginner's mind.
Mm-hmm.
People who master what it is they do always stay in the foundation. They always stay in the basics over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I think, that's been a big challenge for me because I can all of a sudden I'll have an expectation, I'm going to speak or I've got a program I'm developing and all these people are going to love my program or whatever, right?
Right.
And it doesn't happen, so then I'm on the couch for a week, beating myself up.
Yeah.
And the shorter, I'm not saying don't have emotions, but don't take it personally.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah, I don't.
For women, I think.
I think it is because you said something about not being good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
As much as I loved my father and everything he did for me, I was always trying to be better for him. I was never good enough. And I think that's stopped me sometimes in maybe taking the risk. I took a lot of risk in my career, but maybe it stopped me from doing something sooner. Like when I left First Interstate Bank and I was a vice president at age 28 and I told my father I was going to leave the bank and start my own company. My father was like, why would you do that? You're in a secure job in a great field. You're a VP at 28 years old. Why would you do that? You must be crazy. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to prove my dad that I can do this. I started my own business, and then I got hired by Microsoft, and now I've got my own business again, so I'm back in that same path. But I still think about, am I good enough? Am I really good enough? And I don't think men have that issue. I actually think they do, but they hide it very well. Yeah.
They have a different way of being about things.
Yeah.
And I think as human beings, we all have we're all the same and we're different. Right. But in all the same category, I think you find a lot of people feel that, there's something missing or they're not good enough or they could be better.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned you were a painter a couple of times. Do you still paint? And what do you paint?
I do. And now it appears like it's more like therapy. When I get asked to be in a show, I'll create something. I kind of developed a different way of... I'm an abstract painter originally, but now I've developed into being such a storyteller that things have more of a story to them. And I've done a lot of video and combination of writing and photography and different kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I think what I love about branding and marketing is I get to bring all of that creativity for someone else. And I get to go, have you ever thought about it like this? Or people ask me all the time about writing books. Mm-hmm. And, I've written 2 books. And I'm like, it's really easy. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, you just start talking about what you care about. Get some points together and write some blogs, and pretty soon you got a book, if you want to do it that way.
Yeah.
Right? Or I think with the creativity aspect, that's what really distinguishes me from a lot of branding people. Mm-hmm. They might have other things that they do, but I have a really incredible way of telling a story and having the visual, the words, and the look and feel of it all line up. Mm-hmm. And I know it's from my background of, first of all, the magazine art direction is really structured. And then the painting and that world is very structured in a particular way. Mm-hmm. But I'm passionately curious about everything. Everything. And so I'll have a conversation with anybody about anything. Mm-hmm. And then if I don't know that much about it, I'll go look it up.
Right.
I love Google, right? For mostly everything, there's Google, and otherwise, that's where your personality shines.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of your books and some of your presentations that you do. So if people wanted to, I'll obviously ask you how people can get in touch with you, but
sure.
What kind of presentations do you do? Tell us a little bit about your books.
Well, my speaking is pretty much under the umbrella of brand brilliantly, market like Madonna, and profit like a rock star. And that's, I love to use Madonna as a role model. for women in terms of she's an excellent businesswoman as well as super creative. And so the book I was in recently was Hot Women Rock. And it's all about midlife mojo, and it's a compilation, and it became an Amazon bestseller, and it's really great because it's all these, I don't even like to say middle-aged people, but, women who have reinvented themselves, and they became entrepreneurs after 50,
right?
Which is really cool. And my other book is called Laughing Your Way to Loving Yourself. 12 Steps, 7 Habits, 4 Agreements, and 1 cup of veggie soup for the soul. And people are always like, I like veggie soup. And then they look at my recipe and it's like a pinch of love and, a dab of tenderness and things like that. But it's a little irreverent.
Say that title again. That's
Laughing
really...
Your Way to Loving Yourself.
Right.
12 Steps, 7 Habits, 4 Agreements, and 1 cup of veggie soup for the soul. Because, as women, I don't know about you, but I've done self-help my entire life, right? Whatever it was, I was going to improve it.
Right.
And so we make fun in an irreverent way and also add wisdom. I think Michael Beckwith said it's a bridge between heaven and mirth. And as entrepreneurs, we need to laugh.
Yeah,
we need to be having some fun.
We need to be having some fun. If you're not having fun every day, what are you doing wrong? You've got to have some humor in your life. Even if you go to Facebook and you watch some of the videos and things that are out there, get some humor in your life and make yourself feel good. So you talked about wisdom. So kind of the last question I want to ask you, and then we'll do some closing things, is that and how people can get in touch with you. But in terms of wisdom, what wisdom would you pass on to your young self? If you're looking at yourself today and you're going to look at yourself when you were 22, 23, 25, what would you tell yourself?
That's a really great question. I'm just thinking.
I know. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, I would say you have everything you need. You're totally competent. You're totally beautiful. You're completely awesome. I love you and I'll always support you and be here for you.
Right.
And go out and do what your heart desires. Dream big. Just go out and ask people, inspire people, be with people in whatever area it is that you love and care about.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I know at one point in time in the process of writing my book, I actually put the book away and almost didn't get written because I went through this, well, what if I write the book and nobody likes it? What if they hate it? What if they hate me? What if? And finally I said, the heck with this. I use a very different word.
Yeah.
The heck with this. I'm going to write this thing. And literally from the time I decided to write it, I literally started on the Sunday after Easter Sunday and finished on July 4th.
It's extraordinary.
It was extraordinary.
You just let it go.
I just let it go, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night and have to write things down and get out my computer and think about things, or I had Post-it notes and index cards all over my office that had thoughts and prayers and songs and things that inspired me, and then I just sat down and wrote the book. So how can people get in touch with you, Ann?
Well, my website is AnnBennettMarketing.com, so that makes it pretty easy.
Right.
And I'd love to extend, I have a freebie on my website called Liberate Your Rebel Spirit. What's your rebel voice? Discover your rebel voice. And I wanted to offer your listeners, like the first 5 people, if they'd like to get on the phone and talk to me about their brand and
Great.
What makes them unique. I'm happy to do that. And it's a load of fun for me. I usually have them discover their superpower.
Yeah. You fill out a question. You fill out a questionnaire, and you're going to go, these are interesting questions.
Yeah. Lots of times, like, what's your favorite cartoon character?
Yeah.
Who do you most admire? All those things. We're such interesting people. I love people, right? They're so fascinating. I had a young woman come up to me the other day and say, well, I'm an introvert. I'm like, great.
So am I.
That's awesome.
I'm not, but you are.
That's great,
Yeah.
Because every aspect of who we are is, from my point of view, whole, perfect, and complete. And when applied to your brand and applied in the correct way,
right.
and have the words that make sense, that line up, the brand, the whole thing, all your communication needs to be consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Well, thanks for joining us today, Ann. I think this was really fascinating. I know our audience got a lot out of it. It's a pleasure to see you again. Again, this is Patty Grimm, author of Women Kicking Glass, author of Quiet Women Never Change History, Be Strong, Stand Up, Stand Out, with subtitle Let's Go Kick Some Glass, which is a show you're listening to. So a couple things for the audience. One, if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can reach me at my email, basically, because my website's going to be updated. I'm working with Ann, hopefully, on that. But my email is pattygrimm@live.com, and it's PATTIEGRIMM@LIVE.com. Please reach out to me if you've got a topic you'd like to hear on the show, if you'd like to be on the show, if you'd like to book me for a conference, webinars, keynotes, workshops. I do that as well. You can reach out to me on that particularly. Remember, you can pick up my book on Amazon, and each week my goal is to bring topics and strong women to the audience that can help us be strong, stand up, and stand out. And thanks so much, Ann, for being here, and let's go kick some glass.
Thanks for listening to Women Kicking Glass, the only radio show on OC Talk Radio dedicated to empowering women to be the best they can be. Listen each week or download the podcast at patty.grimm.podbean.com. To reach out to Patty to schedule a speech webinar or to learn more about her leadership and team training, contact Patty at pattygrimm@live.com. For more information about her company and her books, have a kicking day.